Welcome back to Namaste Node.js Season 2 and we are building Dev Tinder. Till now we have built a lot of APIs. In the previous episode we saw that how you can create a express router, you can create different type of routers and you can club the APIs together. Right? That is what we saw. We also saw that there is an API list. We created the auth routers, we created the profile routers, right? And this was the homework. Hope you would have done this homework already, right? But now we are moving towards the next set of APIs. We are moving towards a next set of features regarding the connection request. So now till now we were just working with user model, right? We just had user model. We were trying to fetch data from it. We were trying to add data to it. We were trying to authenticate the user. But now the interaction will become, right? The interaction will begin and now one user can send the connection request to another user. And let me tell you, the complexity of code will increase a little and you will see that how we can manage the connection between two users into the database. Okay, so this session, right, this episode is really very important and you will learn a lot of things in this episode. Okay, so we will start right from defining what is a connection request. Right? So we will see that, okay, what is a connection request? We will create a new schema for storing the connection request and we will basically play with a lot of code. We will make the API for sending connection request and we'll do a lot of things. So without wasting any time, let us just get into the code. Okay, so the first thing we will do is we will send connection request. But before we send connection request, we will see that how will we store the connection request into our database. Okay, there can be multiple ways of storing the data into database, but let me tell you one way which is very good. See, some people can also feel that, okay, if I want to store the connection request of a user, I can just store it like this, right? What is the harm? So you can ask me a question, okay, I can just say that, okay, I can just send a I can just store the connection request over here, right? The connection request which I make. Now I will ask you a question, right? And I can just add an array and over here I can add the user ID for it, right? For all the users. But this is not a good design. Why? Because suppose, see, anybody can send connection request to anyone. Now the other person can reject those connection requests. The other person can even, sometimes some people can just send the connection request and it can be in the hanging state, right? The connection request might not get accepted, right? So many things and so many corner cases are there. The best way to handle such cases is keep it away from user collection, right? Don't mess up your user collection. See, there is a reason why we add collections. A reason why we add collections is it defines something. Right? It defines something. So when we created this user schema, it was defining a user, the identity of a user, right? Now whenever there are two users and they are making a connection, so that connection should have its own schema. That connection, that line which is going on. Think about a user A and a user B. Okay. And now there is a line going on between that, okay, A is connected to B. Now that line, right, that connection request has its own schema in itself, right? That is a relation between two entities. Two entities have their own schema. That relation have its own schema. Okay. So we will create a new collection where we will keep our connection request. Okay. So let me just show it to you. Let me create the collection. If you don't understand this theory, when I will code, everything will be understood. Don't you worry. When you will see things happening, everything will make sense to you. Okay, so I will create a new model. Okay, I can say it as requests or I can say it as connection request. So let's be specific. I am talking about connection request. Sorry, my bad. Connection request.js. Now I am naming it as connection request.js. So now this file, this model will define, right? This connection request will define the connection between the two users. How will we define it? Let me just show it to you. First of all, we would need Mongoose, right? Without Mongoose, there is nothing that we can do. Mongoose is a good library that we are using and we will create a schema. How do you create a schema? Hope you have not forgotten that, right? Connection request schema, right? How do you define and a new, and I would say mongoose, right? Dot schema. Okay, I can just add it like this, new schema, and over here I will pass an object. Now we will define what is there in this connection request, right? A connection request. See, what information should I store? There would be a user which is sending the connection request to some other user. Okay, so I would need the identity of this user, and I would need the identity of the sender and the receiver. Okay, and then I would also need that what is the status of that connection request. Okay, so let us just try to add that. So let me name them as from user ID and to user ID. Okay, so like this. Okay, I will store it like this, from user ID. Basically this connection request is from user ID and is sent to user ID. Okay, so I think this nomenclature works. From user ID means this is the sender. Okay, I can also say sender and receiver, but that does not make any sense, right? I mean, I don't know, right? I like this preference. You can also write sender ID and receiver ID, something like that. But I am not using that. I am just saying from user ID. That means this connection request is sent from user ID, and this connection request is sent to user ID. Okay, so this is the logic that is there in my head. You can use whatever name you wish to, but I would say stick to this, right? Or you can say sender, receiver, right? It's up to you. Now, what is the type of this, right? Is this is the user ID? What user ID we will store over here? So basically, I will store this user ID, this underscore ID of Akshay. This is the sender or receiver ID that I will store. Okay, so this is not a type of a string. This is type of a mongoose, right? Mongoose.schema.types, right? And then in this types, you will get something known as object ID, right? So this is the type of basically your from user ID. Okay, this is the type. Now, similarly, we will also have a to user ID. Okay, let me add a comma. Right, and then I can have a to user ID, right? And this to user ID is also same, right? To user ID means whom you are sending the connection request. And then comes the status, right? You can add the status. Now a status is definitely a string, right? Type is string. Okay, this status is definitely a string. You know why it is a string, right? So the status can either be, let's create this as an enum, I would say. Okay, so let's create an enum, right? So do you know what is an enum? If you don't know it, go read about it on the documentation. Go to the Mongoose documentation, search for enum over here, right? Search for enum over here. You would understand. I think this is the enum. Yep, this is the enum. Okay, so go over here. Just read this documentation and what you find over here, right? So just see this documentation, read it up, read how to use it. But let me just tell you, you will find the examples of using enum also. Okay, so you can find the example also, but let me show it to you. You create a enum whenever you want to restrict user for some values. Okay, you can create a enum at the place where you want to restrict user for some values. So suppose I just want that the status should only have certain values. Okay, the status, remember we were discussing that in API list. So the status can just be 4, right? Ignore, interested, accepted, rejected. These are the only 4 things that can come into a status. Apart from everything else, right? Everything else should throw an error, right? This is the enum. Now I would say that, okay, we will make a enum using these 4 values. Let me copy paste. This will be helpful for us. Okay. And how do you store an enum? Let me just show it to you. See, these things are very new, but it will be very easier for you to understand these, right? Don't you worry about it. Okay. So now we will have an enum. And over here, I can write that, okay, my enum can have these values. Okay. So first of all, wait just a minute. So enum is also an object, right? So you will write it like this. And in this enum, right? Let me add a comma over here. So in this enum, I can just have a values, and what values can come over here, right? Either it can be string, right? Ignore. See, the type of this status is string, right? Because it is a string at the end of the day. But this enum will define that what values are accepted, right? Apart from that, no value will be accepted, and your schema level. So this is kind of like a schema level validation. Okay, anything else apart from that will not be stored in the schema, right? It will throw a message, right? And what message? I can also add a message over here. You can add a message and you can say that, okay, maybe something like this: dollar value, right, is incorrect. Let me just tell you what it is. Incorrect status type. Okay, so suppose if somebody is trying to add something else inside this enum, right? Suppose if somebody is trying to add maybe XYZ, right? Suppose if somebody is adding XYZ into status. So what will happen? The DB will throw an error, the schema will throw an error and will say XYZ is incorrect status type. Okay, so now how I got to know this? I got to know this by documentation. Okay, just go read the documentation of enum, right? I am not sure how, where it will be, right? Yup, I think here in string enum. Cool. Creates a validator and checks. So you can also find, okay, let me find it out. It is getting tough for me also to find it out. Is there in the string? Let's go to string. Okay. Do I have enum over here? Do I have a enum over here? Let me just figure out, right? Just wait a minute, right? Sometimes it is tough for me also to find out things inside the documentation. But let me just show it to you where you will find it. Right over here, you don't see enum, or let me just search for enum. If I can find enum on this place, right? Here is enum. Enum on a string. Yes, this is what it is. If I click on validator, it says enum validations. Do you have a enum validation over here? Enum validation, enum, command F, enum, enum. Yep, cool. See this. Do you see this custom error messages? You got it, right? So basically, see, you can add a breakfast schema. In the breakfast, you can have different type, right? Eggs and then something like that. And then you can add a drink. And in the drink, only tea and coffee is the value which is accepted, right? Only you can add tea or coffee. And if you pass in something else, it says value is not supported. Got it? So this is how you add it. Cool. So this is how you add it, right? Read about it. See, I have read the documentation of Mongoose and I did not even remember that, right, where it was. But sometimes, inside validations, you can find this custom error message, right? Go read through the documentation. You will find out that how you can add custom validators in schema also, right? Suppose if you want to add custom validations, you want to do a lot of things, right? How do you want to cast errors? Everything is present over here, right? I can, make a Namaste Mongoose out of this Mongoose library. It is such a vast library. And the more you will work with MongoDB, the more you will build projects, the more you will explore these kind of things, right? It's very, very important to explore the documentation and learn all these things because we are daily using things up, right? So as in when I will come across such things, I will keep on telling these new things about Mongoose to you. And let me also tell you, there is one more catch, right? In user schema also, there was a chance over here in gender, right? In the gender, male, female, others, right? I told you that this is a custom validator, right? I am validating it, but you should ideally add an enum over here also, right? You should also add an enum over here and you can add values, right? And over here you can add this male, right? What are the values, right? Male, female. Okay. Male, female and others. Okay. So you can, see, when I was teaching you, I was just showing you that how do you write custom validation over here, right? But you can also write it like this. This is perfectly valid, right? You can write values over here, and you can also write a message, right? And in this message, you can pass in some things, right? You can just pass in things like this, value, right? VALUE. Value is not a valid gender type, right? Gender type. Okay, so if something else is coming here, the schema will throw an error, and you don't even need this validate function now, right? You can just skip this validate function, or you can also keep it. There is no harm in that, right? There is no harm in that. Got it? So this is also one way of doing it. So this is how it is. Let me just update it when I am here. So now I have got this status also. Do I need anything else in my schema, right? A connection request, I have stored the information about user ID, right? This is the user ID of sender. This is the user ID of receiver and the status of it. And what else is a relevant information that we can keep inside connection request? I can't think of any as of now. Yes, one thing is timestamps, right? We need timestamps because you send a connection request, so you should also know how many, suppose you remember, if you are from the Facebook era, it shows you that, okay, if suppose I am sending you the connection request, so it shows that, okay, Akshay sent you a connection request 5 minutes ago. So you need a timestamp, right? When was that connection request sent, and when was the connection request accepted, all these things, right? So similarly, for that, we would need timestamps. So let us just enable timestamps over here. Timestamps is equals to true. So it will automatically keep your updated and created timestamp, right? So this is what my schema looks like. Do you see a need of adding anything else? Tell me. Do you need anything else to add in over here? Think about it. So you can add some more strict checks, right? Suppose if a connection request is getting created, so from user ID to user ID and status, all of them are required fields. All of them, isn't it? Remember I told you when I was teaching you how to create schema? So all of them are required fields. A connection request cannot exist without a from user ID or a to user ID or a status, right? So our connection request should mandatorily have a required field over here, right? Mandatory, right? This is mandatory, TRUE, true. Okay, required true, true. Okay, and then status is also required true, right? So this is a mandatory thing, required true. Anything else, you don't need to add trim, or you don't need to add other kind of things over here. If there will be some schema modifications, we'll do it later on. But for now, this schema looks good to me, right? This schema looks very good to me. Okay, I don't see a problem with this schema. Okay, so okay, I can just write it like this. Cool. So I don't see a problem with this schema. This schema looks good to me. Now, what else do? We add model. We create a model, right? Connection request model. REQUEST connection request model. Right? Let us create a connection request model. And this model always, model always start with a capital letter, connection request model. Or let me just call this as connection request is equals to new. And I can say mongoose.model, right? And in the model, the first thing is the name of the model, connection request. And I can also send in the schema, right? Connection request schema, right? This is what it is. And then I can just export module.exports connection request. Okay, so I am creating a model over here, right? And let me just write it model to be very specific about what I am creating. Cool. So we have exported the model over here, right? So connection request model is here. Connection request model is here. Cool. I have exported this. Now, this is the definition of my connection request. Hope you would have understood. Now we are ready to create our API. Now we are ready to put some data into the connection request, and let us just write some logic for that. Are you ready, my dear friends, or not? Let us try to make an API call and say that person A is sending the connection request to person B, and how do we store that information in the database? Okay, so let us just see, right? And hope you remember that, okay, here we can only store ignore or ignored, interested, accepted, rejected. So somebody is sending the connection request. So either he can ignore or interested, right? Something like that. So let us just write our API. Let us go to API list and let us create a API for sending the connection request, right? Sending the connection request. Okay. So this is the API we will create. Now let us go back where we will create the API. Now tell me, in the last lecture, I told you where should I write code to create the API? In the request router. You are exactly right, my dear friend. So in over here in routers, right, in the routes, I have a request route. Over here I have created a request router. I have a post API already, send connection request. So let us just use the same API and modify it, right? Now the new API says that I want to create request, send and interest, right? So now this is the API request send. Okay, and let me just go back to request.js and let us now close the app.js because we will not need this app.js now, right? We will need it very less. So I am closing it. API list, let me keep it open, and connection request, let us keep it over here because we might need it. Cool. So now API list, what is the API? /request/send. Okay, /request. So what I will write, /request/send. Okay, now what I will do, I over here want interested, right? I can write interested, right? And then I can add a user ID over here, right? The user ID means the to user ID. So why I am saying to user ID? Because a connection request is sent to user ID. And the from user, where will I get from user ID? From user ID is the person who is logged in already, my dear friend, isn't it? The from user ID is the logged in person, right? The person who is logged in, that is from user ID. And over here, I will say to user ID. So if I go to tinder.com, okay, let me just show it to you once again. So over here, you know, if I am calling an API, let me open the app. Come on, let's open this. Cool. So I have got this person over here, Ekta. And if I am sending the connection request, I said send, right? So this ID is of Ekta, right? And where is my ID? My ID is coming from the token logged in user token. Okay. So basically over here, you know, let me just clear all these things first of all, right? Let me just clear all these things first of all. Let me make it very empty, right? To start writing code. Now, first of all, let me write try catch because I don't start anything without a try catch, right? Make a habit. This is a good habit, right? Okay, you can write it using try catch because you never know what error you might get into. Status 404, not 404, sorry, 400 and send, and then you can write error, and then you can send the error message. Okay, this is the error message. Cool. This is what it is, and my bad. Okay, cool. This is the try catch. Now inside try catch, right? Inside try catch, what you will find is, right? Over here, when you call this user auth, when you call this is the middleware, right? User auth, logged in user. So you will get the logged in user information inside request.user. So over here, this request.user will be the logged in user, isn't it? This will be the logged in user. So let me just create the logged in user, and this is the user. This request.user is the person who is sending the connection request, right? So basically, this is basically the from user. If you will see it clearly, this is basically the from user, right? Who is sending the, right? If you want to find the from user ID, you will find it from request.user._ID. Did you understand this or not? You should understand this. See, in this API, I need data of from user ID. I need data of to user ID, right? So basically what I am saying is from user ID is coming from the logged in user information, and logged in user is what? This is the user auth. Remember user auth, right? Remember user auth. This is the middleware. Suppose if somebody is logging in, so this user auth basically finds out whether the user is there on DB or not. If the user is there in DB, then it just adds it onto this request object and calls the next. When it calls the next, that means I am now going to this request handler, right? This user auth called next. In this request handler, when I receive this REQ, a user object is already there, right? Which I added in the user auth. Over here, I added this user, right? Remember? And now I call the next. So this will be here and this ID is from user ID. How will I get my to user ID, right? How will I get my to user ID? This to user ID will come from my params, right? Params dot to user ID, right? So to user ID will come from here, from user ID to user ID. And where will I get my status from, right? Where will I get my status from? The status while I'm sending the connection request is interested. Can we make this dynamic is my question. Can I use the same API for left swipe as well as for right swipe? Can I use the same API for left swipe or right swipe? Hear me out, take a pause and think about it for a while. Can I use the same API for interested or ignoring the profile, right? Can I use the same API for left swipe or right swipe, right? So how will I do that? If I left swipe, so this API is pass slash user ID. This API is like slash user ID. Similarly, can I make the same API work for both, right? Can I make the same API work for both? If you go and see, just see these things, right? The only difference in these two API is this, right? So can I make it dynamic? Can I make the status dynamic? Something like that. And the status over here can be either ignored or can be either interested, right? So the status can either be ignored or the status can either be interested, right? Ignored or interested. Got it? So let us make this API one more dynamic. So instead of creating an API differently for rejecting and accepting, I can handle the same thing in the same API, because at the end of the day, it is the same logic that we are going to use, right? So why not? So cool. So the status will come from my request.param.status again. Cool. So I have got all these things, right? Now what I will do, okay? So now I have got my from user ID, I have got my to user ID, and I have got my status, right? Now what I have to do, I can just save it, isn't it? Can I save my connection request? How do you save it? I can say connection request request is equals to, let's create a new instance of the connection request model. Okay, remember how do you do that? You do that by using new connection request model, right? And this connection request model will come from here, right? Connection request. And let's not call this as connection request model, it looks very ugly. I can say I am creating a new connection request, and over here I will pass the data, and I will pass the from user ID over here, I will pass the to user ID over here, and I will pass the status over here. And now what I will do, right? I will just save this connection request, right? I have created a new instance of this connection request model. This is basically the connection request model. Where it is coming from? It is coming from here, right? From the connection request here, right? This is getting exported, this connection request, and over here it is coming from this file, okay, models/connection request. And now I just have to save it, right? Shall I save it? How do you save it? Do you remember? I can just write await, right? First of all, let me write, okay, so data. Okay, let's just write data, right? Await, and or I would say that, okay, yeah, let's write data, right? Connection request data, or just let's write rate data, right? Okay, I'm good with it. I have some OCD of these variable names, right? But let's write data, and let's say this connection request dot save. Okay, I will save it, and this save will basically save it into the DB, right? This connection request will save it into the DB. Okay, so what you can do is you can just do await connection request dot save, and now I can send the response back, response dot send or response dot json. I taught you in the last episode, right? You can send the JSON over here, and in the JSON, I can just send a message also. I can say a message, right? And I can say connection request sent successfully, connection request sent successfully, right? Connection request sent successfully. Okay, I can send the message, and I can also send the data if I want to, the data of the connection request back, right? If I want, I can just send the data of the connection request back, right? So it will just send the data of this connection request also to back to the user, right? So this is a very happy basic connection request. Shall I test it? Shall we test it, right? Let us just try to test this up and see if this works or not, right? Right now, just test it up. Let us send the connection request. Okay, I am very, very excited to send the first connection request. Let me just log in with my profile, okay? And I will send the connection request to Elon Musk, okay? Let us send the connection request to Elon Musk. Okay, this is the Elon Musk, right? I will send the connection request, but let me just create the, over here, yes. Sorry, over here also you have to change it to status. Don't forget that, right? This status, dynamic. Because see, this colon status means it becomes a dynamic thing, right? Either interested can be there or something else can be there, right? And let me just create this API in my Postman and try to hit it. Right, so I have to create, this is a post API, right? This is a post API. Let me just copy it up, duplicate. Okay, so this is the post API. Over here, let me just write it like this. Request send status user ID. Over here, I can write request send and status. Instead of status, I will send interested because I am interested. Interested. Okay, sorry, my bad. Interested. Okay, send interested to user ID. Now this is the user ID of Elon Musk, right? So let me just copy the user ID of Elon Musk and let me send it over here, right? So this is the user ID of Elon Musk. In the body, I don't have to send anything. So I can just save my API, and if I hit send, okay, my bad. Here there are 2 slashes. If I hit send, it will send the API call. Are we ready? Let me just first of all test it with our fingers crossed. Let us send it and see what happens if I send it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let us just see. Validation failed. It says incorrect status type. This is incorrect status type. Why it is saying this is incorrect status type? Just see this. Validation say, okay, basically my API is trying to add this into the status. My API is trying to add this into the status. That means I did a wrong thing. Request send status to user ID. Okay, my bad. Do you see this? Do you see a problem? In line number 14 over here, I passed in request.pelham.toUserID. Oh my God. But our validation got tested, right? So basically, my DB is not allowing me to add this as the status. Why? Because I have made an enum, right? I was sending the user ID, object ID as the status over here, and it failed. This was a good testing, right? For our API. No issues, right? This was a good testing, isn't it? Our status is secured, right? Okay, so now this is the user ID. Did I change it? Let me just change it to status and save it. Status, save, right? Now let me go back, fingers crossed again. Let me hit it. 3, 2, 1, send. Cool. The connection request was sent successfully, my dear friend, and my DB now has information about Akshay Saini has sent the connection request to Elon Musk. Amazing, isn't it? Right? Right. I have sent the connection request to Elon Musk, right? And now Elon Musk has got the connection request from me, right? I have matched. I am interested in Elon Musk, right? So I have swiped right Elon Musk right now, right? And this is what it is, right? This is how it happens. And we have successfully got this object also back, right? We have successfully got this object also back. So our data is coming correctly over here. And now you know, if you will go back, if you will refresh the page, okay, I won't see it. See, over here, I just see user collection. So let me refresh my DB. If I refresh my DB, do you see a new collection has been created, a new connection request is sent, and now this connection request collection is very obfuscated. You are not able to understand it, right? There is a reason for it, because we have the from user ID, this 91D is Akshay, and 7BF is Elon Musk, right? So from user ID to user ID, status is interested, right? I am interested in Elon Musk's profile, right? So this is what it is. This is how you make the connection request. Okay, but what if I tell you there are so many flaws in our connection request API? There are so many flaws in our connection request API. Okay. Now, what kind of flaws? This is the very happy case. Now, if you are a junior developer, if you are an intern, this is the intern level code that we have written, right? This is the intern level. Oh, sorry. Let me just remove this also, right? Cool. Right. So let me just remove this. This was the extra code written over here, right? From the earlier point of time. Cool. Now let me tell you, this is the intern level code. How will you write the code of, expert level code? Okay, let me just have some water. Think about it, my dear friends. How will you write the, code of an expert level developer? Yes, the first thing is my APIs don't have validation. My APIs don't have validation. What if, the first mistake I can tell you is, what if I just pass accepted over here? If I pass accepted and send it, what will happen? It will store accepted over here, and that means Elon Musk has accepted Akshay Saini's friend request also. We will not allow user to accept the request by this API. This API is just for either interested or I can send ignored over here, right? Nothing else. This API is just for this Tinder, right? Either it is left swipe or right swipe. Let me just cross it, right? Either I can do left swipe, either I can do right swipe. I cannot accept it, right? So the connection request status can either go from ignored or interested. I cannot change it to accepted, right? I cannot change it to accepted. Okay, this API cannot change it to accepted. It can either be ignored or it can either be interested. How will you make sure? So you will have to validate the data. So the first validation that we will do is, let us create allowed status, right? Allowed status. Okay, allowed status. What are the allowed status? The allowed status is either ignored or I would say interested. Okay, interested. Cool. So these are the status. Now I will just check if my status or allowed status dot includes status, right? If my status, right, whatever the status is coming from the API, whatever I told you, right, never trust the request, right? Whatever request.params are coming, these data is coming from the user, and attacker can send anything over here. So never trust it. So I'm not trusting it. This status can either be ignored or interested. I will check if the allowed status dot includes status is true, right? Then only I will move ahead. If it is not present, if it is not there, then I will throw an error, or I can send the response back. Let us just send the response back from here. How will you send the response back? I do return. Don't forget to write return. If you will write return, the code will not move ahead, right? If you don't write return, the code will move ahead, right? So always write return and then write response dot status. And I would say it's a bad request, right? It's a bad request 400. And then I will send a message to the user, right? Or I can just send a JSON, right? Because we were using the nomenclature JSON, right? And let us send this message over here. I will send a message, and the message will be that, invalid status type. Invalid status type, right? status type. Okay, invalid status type, and I can also send the status type, right? Whatever invalid status type and whatever the user has sent, I can just send it, right? Cool. So cool. So invalid status type. Okay, so now if I test it, so if I am sending anything, right? Suppose if I am sending accepted over here, right? Suppose if the attacker is sending accepted, right? ACCEPETED, accepted, right? And if I send it, it will say invalid status type accepted, right? This accepted is not the status type, correct status type. If I am sending XYZ and if I send it up, it says invalid status type XYZ. Okay, it can either be ignored, it can either be interested. This is what the status type can be. Okay, so now can you think of more issues in our API? Can you think of more issues? Let me tell you one more issue, right? So, these are the issues. A lot of people say that, okay, data structure, importance of data structure. See, importance of data structure over here is, I am not using data structure. But, in my personal opinion, when I used to do data structure, so one thing I have learned by solving a lot of lead code problems was that I became very good at finding corner cases. And corner cases is a very important thing about data structure, right? Whenever you are writing code, you cannot miss the corner case. And whenever you are writing API level code, you cannot miss the corner cases. If you miss the corner cases, that will give an opportunity for the attacker to attack your website, attack your APIs, and it will make your database. Any attacker can put random things inside database if you don't put a check at every place. Every single place your API should be secure. Every single place your API should be so much protected that you should think about all the corner cases when you are writing the API call. See, there is one more problem in our API. That problem, let me show it to you. So see, now if suppose Akshay has sent the connection request to Elon, right? Akshay has sent the connection request to Elon. But now, what if Elon wants to send the connection request to Akshay once again? Suppose if Elon is sending the connection request to once again, Akshay, right? So see, Akshay has sent the connection request to Elon. It is still in interested phase. But now Elon Musk tries to send the connection request to Akshay. So this should not be valid, right? So this should not be valid. And what if I try to send the connection request once again to Elon? So what will happen? Right? So suppose if I have already sent this connection request, I hit this API once again. What will happen? A new connection request will be created. There will be 2 entries over here. Right? 2 entries over here that Akshay has sent connection request to Elon. And there will be one more entry Akshay has sent connection request to Elon. That will be failed at schema level, because at schema level that will be a duplicate connection request. But I'm just telling you that if Akshay has sent a connection request to Elon, now Akshay should not be able to send a connection request to Elon once again, right? And Elon Musk should also not be able to send connection request to Akshay. Got it? So these are the 2 things which we will validate. So basically what we will do in code now, I will check if there is an existing schema, existing connection request, right? So what I will do now, I will write code to check, right? If suppose I am Akshay is trying to send, Akshay sent connection request to Elon. Now I will check from the code that, okay, I have checked that, okay, status is fine. Now I will check whether a connection request from person A to person B already exists, or if there is a connection request already pending from B to A, right? So in both the cases, I will not be able to allow to send the connection request once again. Okay. So what will I do now is, suppose, okay, I will write constant, right? Constant is equals to, I am finding existing connection request. I will just do await, and I will try to find the connection request, okay, dot find one, right? Find one, or sorry, my bad, find one. And over here, I will find out whether Akshay has already sent the connection request. How will I find? I will have to add an add an object over here, right? In this object, I will have to pass the from user ID and to user ID, right? So if I am from user ID and to user ID, if it exists already, right? If I get the user ID already, okay? So I am not writing it again. So you can just write in a shorthand way. Instead of doing from user ID, you can just do comma like this, right? So basically, I will try, see, suppose if I am hitting this API call, I will first of all check my status. So I have checked my status, right? This is the status validation which I have done. Now I will check if there is already a request exist, right? If there is already a request exist over here, right? If there is already a request which is pending over here, so I will not be able to send it once again. So, okay. And now I will also check if Elon has sent Akshay the connection request, right? So over here, I will check Elon has sent connection request to Akshay and Akshay has sent to Elon. I can do the same thing in the same query over here. And how will I write the query? Just look at how I am writing the query. So over here, I will use a OR condition. How do you use a OR condition? Let me just show it to you. You write $OR. Okay. This is a MongoDB thing, right? In the MongoDB, how do you query? You should know about it. In your OR, you pass an array and you pass the array of conditions. Oh my God, what has happened? Come on. Yep. So in the OR, you pass the array of conditions, and over here, I will pass the first condition as, just let me write it down. I will explain it to you, right? Don't worry. Right. So the from user ID to user ID, and I will check if the from user ID is to user ID, right? To user ID, and to user ID is from user ID. Okay. Okay. So now I have written this code. Cool. So now just try to think about this. Just try to read this, pause this video over here, pause this video right now and try to think what will happen with this code. What is this code doing? Think about it. Take like good 20-30 seconds to think about it, right? Think about it once. Because see, writing the logic, writing the code is all about logic. Whatever is there in your head should come inside code also. This is a very important check. See, this you understood, right? Status check. I will check the status should be either ignored or interested. I will not take anything. But if suppose Akshay has, see, let us just remove this, right? Let me just remove this connection request. Everything is empty. I have removed every connection request, right? There is nothing in my database. I am Akshay. Am I Akshay? Let me just go to profile and view. Yes, Akshay is logged in. Now let me go and send connection request to Elon Musk. This 7BF is Elon Musk. Akshay is now sending the connection request to Elon Musk. Okay. I have sent this connection request. It says invalid status type accepted. Okay. Sorry, my bad. So suppose Akshay is interested in Elon Musk profile. Interested in Elon Musk's profile. Okay. So if I hit send, it says connection request sent successfully and Elon got the connection request. If you'll see in the DB, Elon has got the connection request. Okay. Now, if I try to send this once again, so it should not happen. The other thing which should not happen, Elon should not be able to send me the connection request. Okay. So I am doing the same thing once again. If suppose you will make another API call from here, so I will check. This is the OR condition. So I am finding in my connection request database that OR, right? Find one if the from user ID and to user ID already exist, right? If the from user ID and to already exist, or this is the second condition, right? And these are the OR condition. Or check whether the from user ID is to user ID. Basically, think about it like this, right? If a request is coming when Akshay is trying to send to Elon, over here I am checking, is Akshay from user ID Akshay and Elon Musk entry already present in the DB? Yes, this is an existing, or I am now reversing it, right? In the from user ID, Elon Musk and Akshay's entry is also there, right? So this is checking that condition. If at all present, then I will get that connection request. And if I get a connection request over here, if I get any existing connection request, see, it should give me empty, right? This find request should give me empty, right? It should give me undefined, it should give me null, because I should not be able to find. If I find it, right? If I find it, then what I will do, I will just return a response from here, and I will say that, okay, status, right? I will say bad request, and what I will do, I will just send the logic. I can either throw an error also. See, you can do the throw an error, or you can just return from here. It is one and the same thing. And over here, I can send a message, right? I can send a message, and over here I can say connection request already present, already exists, right? Right? You are trying to make a duplicate connection request. So now once Akshay has sent to Elon, now Akshay cannot send to Elon again, and Elon cannot send to Akshay, right? Cool. So now this is the logic I have written. Let us just test this thing out, right? Can I test it out? Let us make this API call once again. And if I send it, okay, it is not giving me the right message, right? It is not giving me the right message over here, right? Why it is not giving me the right message? It is basically failing at DB level, right? It is basically failing at the schema level, because it is saying that in the schema, it is not allowed to create duplicate key. I have some mistake in my code for sure, right? Let me check. I am doing existing connection request. I am doing await connection request dot find one. I am writing an or condition over here. I am writing the or from user ID to user ID, and I'm also checking from user ID to user ID and to user ID. Okay, I am writing not. Oh my God, my bad. Come on. So basically, if there is an existing, then I should throw an error. If not existing, I was writing this. My bad. This is what I'm saying. This code errors can happen, right? So don't worry about it. Let me go back, send it. Now our code will handle it properly. See, let me just tell you, right? If I was failing this condition, still my DB was not allowing the connection request, okay? My DB was not allowing connection request. It says now it is failed at schema level. Why it failed at schema level? DB will not allow the same entry again, right? DB is not allowing the exact same entry again, right? This is the connection request. It is not allowing the same, right? But let me just tell you, okay, over here, right, DB is not allowing it, but I want to handle it properly from the API. This is the right way to handle it. Okay, this is the right way to handle it, and I should be very sure what is happening to my code. We should not be relying on schema checks. This is a bad way of handling it. This is a good way of handling it, that you get a proper message, connection request already exists. Okay, now there is one more. Let me also tell you one more important thing, right? Suppose if I did a not again over here, right? So this will still be handled by schema, right? This will still be handled by schema validation. But what if now Elon Musk try to send the connection request, right? Let us go to Elon Musk, right? Elon @123. Send it. Elon is logged in. Let me just verify, if the Elon is logged in or not. How to verify Elon is logged in or not? I just go to profile and I just view the profile, right? Yes, Elon Musk is logged in. Now let us go and send. Elon Musk should send the connection request to Akshay, right? Where is Akshay? In the users, here is Akshay. And now suppose Elon Musk is sending the connection request to Akshay 91D. And if I send it, see, the connection request was successfully created. Now what happened? My DB got messed up. Why? Because see, inside the DB, if you will go to connection request, you will find two connection requests. See, and they have the same from and to user ID. See, over here, 91D is sending the connection request to 7BF. And over here, 7BF is sending to 91D. So this is basically a deadlock. Elon has sent connection request to Akshay and Akshay has sent to Elon. So this is a problem. You should never do it. Your code should handle it. And if I write this code properly, if I remove this not over here, I will check if there is an existing connection request from Elon to Akshay or Akshay to Elon. This is the OR condition. Try to write yourself, try to figure out that why I am writing this code. A lot of people face a lot of issues while creating these queries, but it is very easy. The more you will do, the better you will become. Okay. So now let me first of all delete this connection request. This is a bad connection request. Okay. Refresh it, right? Now, if the connection request already exists from Akshay to Elon, now Elon is again trying to send. So it will say connection request already exists. Okay. Got it? So now our API is much more secure in this level. I am checking my statuses. I am checking whether the connection request, if the if the connection request is formed or not, right? Everything I am checking. Can I put more validations over here, right? Are we done? Is it good? Or can you think of more validations over here? See, I have checked status. I have checked whether the duplicate request is there. One more validation can be there. What if I try to send something random over here, right? What if I try to send something maybe XYZ, right? What will happen now? If I try to send XYZ, what will happen? Tell me. What will happen, my dear friends? Tell me. If I try to send a connection request to random user XYZ, let me just send it. It says that cannot cast object ID failed for the value XYZ. Okay. So let me just take random object ID. Okay. Let us take the object ID of this Kanika, right? This is the Tinder, right? This is Tinder. This is random object ID I'm taking, which does not even exist in my DB, right? Which does not even exist. Will it work? Right? I'm taking random MongoDB ID. If I send it, see, connection request was completed. Connection request was made. I am sending a connection request to a person which is not even there in my DB because I have taken this object ID from somewhere in Tinder, right? So we have not checked whether if I am sending the connection request to this ID, whether this user even exists in my DB or not. I have not made a check. User or attacker can do anything. Attacker can send anything in your API, right? Never trust it. Okay, this user was not even present and my connection request table got messed up. This connection request basically is fake. There is no user such as this, right? This is not the user ID in our database. You will not find any user with this object ID, right? So let me just delete it and let us also avoid it. How will I check that? How will I check that, my dear friends? So I have checked the status and I have checked the status. Now I will check if this to user ID is an existing user, right? So I will check if my to user ID, right? Can I get my to user, right? Let me just fetch the to user from my database. So I will do await. I will say user.find, find by ID, right? Or find one. I will do user.find by ID, right? Find by ID. Oh, this is not user activation. I should do user. Sorry. Find by ID. And over here, I will find by to user ID, right? Now, if my to user does not exist, right? If my to user does not exist, if not of to user, right? Now I can throw the error or I can just send the return response from here, right? Return response dot status and I can say 404 and I can just say .json. And inside this JSON, I can write a message and I can say user not found, right? This user is not even there, right? This user is not even there in our DB. Cool. So let me write it down over here. Just a minute. Cool. So now what I am doing, I am trying to find the existing user, right? To user. And now if the to user is not there in our DB, right? Then I will say user not found, right? Or you are sending connection request to a non-valid user or something like that, right? So let us now try to send it to random user ID. If I send it, it will say user is not defined, right? It says user is not defined. Okay, user is not defined. User is not defined. I was sending the error something else, right? User not found. 400 bad request. Why? User. Okay. So this error, don't worry. This error is not exactly what we are looking. This error is coming because of this user not found. I have not imported user. Okay. So, just be careful when you write code, right? Otherwise, it will be tough for you. See, I imported the user. Now let us just try to send it. If I send it, it says user not found. This is the message you should receive. This user does not exist in our database. Okay. Now, if Elon is sending back to Akshay, let me just go back user and let me just send it, right? Cool. So it says connection request already exists. Now let me log in as Akshay quickly, right? Let me just log in at Akshay and Akshay, right? And if I hit send, right? Login successful. Let me go to profile view and see Akshay Saini is logged in now. Now I will go and send the connection request to Elon once again, right? Where is my Elon Musk? Where is the Elon Musk, dude? This Elon guy, right? This Elon guy sent. Cool. So it says that connection request already exists. Okay. Now, is there anything else that we can handle? Tell me. There is one more corner case which is left. Think about it. Think about it, my dear friend. Think about it, please. There is one more corner case which is left. I will see how good of developers you guys are. Think about it. Take a moment, take a pause over here and try to find out, right? What is the one corner case which is left? A user, all of you might be thinking that, okay, sending the connection request is a very easy API to make. No, there are so many random cases. Suppose if the user is sending random status. Suppose if the user is sending random user ID. Suppose if then existing connection request, they are trying to send it again, right? Suppose if the other person is sending to the other person, right? So you cannot let the user ID mess up. Let me tell you what the issue is. See, I am logged in as Akshay, right? Is it? I am logged in as Akshay, right? And this is my profile, right? Akshay. What if Akshay tries to send the connection request to Akshay itself? We have not handled that case. Will it work or not? Right? Let me just send you, right? This is the ID of Akshay, right? So basically I'm sending the connection request to Akshay, right? And send it. Do you see this? Connection request sent successfully. You will laugh now, right? If I refresh the page, you will see this. From user ID is same as to user ID, right? This from user ID is same as to user ID, my dear friends. Do you want to allow this? Can Akshay send a connection request to Akshay? Right? It is a bug in our application, isn't it? This is a bug, right? This connection request should not have come. Let me just delete it, right? Let me just delete it and let us just fix this up. Right. So what I can do is now I can write code over here to fix it. So basically I can check whether my to user is equal to from user, right? So I can write the logic to check if my to user, right? Even before I check this to user, I can just check the status and then I can check if my to user, and I will compare the to user to from user and check it. But over here, let me introduce a new concept to you. Remember we created schema methods? Similarly, we can create schema validations also, right? We can create schema validations also. Now you can write this logic over here and handle it, right? You can write this logic over here and handle it. But I want to teach you an important concept, right? That is why I am just writing this code. Okay. So in the connection request, remember we can create schema methods. Similarly, we can also create schema pre, right? There is something known as pre. Let me just tell you what is pre, right? Let me just tell you what is pre. Where is it? Mongoose model, right? Mongoose may, let us just find out pre, right? This pre is a function. Yep. See, this pre is a function. Okay, where is it? Yep. See, this pre is a function on schema, right? Let me just find out. This is not the right pre, what I am talking about. Pre in the schema, right? Where I will find in the schema, Mongoose schema pre. Okay, let me just Google it. Mongoose schema pre. Okay, so over here, cool. This is the pre hook. See this. This is what I am talking about. So this pre is kind of like a middleware. See, this is kind of like a middleware over here. Let me just, go to middlewares and try to find out this, right? Try to read about it, right? Where is it? Errors in pre middleware. Let me just go back. Cool. So this is schema.pre over here, right? Schema.pre over here. Let me just tell you how to write it. Now, connection request dot pre. Okay, connection request dot pre. I can just write it like this: connection request, or no, sorry, connection request schema dot pre, right? And what I can do, pre. What do you mean by pre is, and I will say save. And I will write a function over here. Remember, the function that you will write over here will be a normal function, not an arrow function. Otherwise, this will not work. Okay. Whenever you are writing a, whenever you are writing a schema method or you are writing some pre function, so always try to, always try to write this function. If you'll write arrow function, then this will not work otherwise. Okay. But now here this will work. Okay. This connection request, or I would say request, right? Connection request. Okay, connection request. Connection request. Okay, is equals to this, right? This is the connection request over here. Now, what is this method and when this will be called, right? This is kind of like a middleware. It will be called every time the connection request will be saved. Anytime you are saving a connection request, whenever you will call a save method, right? Where is request? Whenever you will call this save method over here, right? So it will be called pre-save. That is why the name is pre. Okay. This pre means I am calling this middleware pre-save. This save is kind of like an event, right? It is kind of like an event handler, right? Event handler. And connection request.pre save, that means before I save it, this function will be called. So I can, you can do a lot of things here. You can do a lot of validations over here. You can do a lot of checks over here. You can write ultimately any code over here. You can even do logging and monitoring over here. You can do whatever you wish to. I wanted to teach you this concept. That is why I am writing some code over here. Over here, I will check if my from and to user ID are same, right? Let us get this check. Check if the from user ID is same as to user ID. Okay, this is the check I am writing over here, right? And let us write it. So this is kind of like, a validation before saving. It is a very good way. You can use this method too. I'm just telling you all the ways of writing code. Okay. Now I will check if my from user ID is equals to user ID. But see, you cannot directly compare. The type of this from user ID is object, right? This is the object ID. So it is something like this, right? It is in this object ID. It is not a string exactly, right? So you have to parse things up, right? How do you check it? Let me just tell you. Now you will check connection request dot from user ID dot equals, right? There is a function equals, and now I will check if this is equals to connection request dot to user ID. Okay, if both of them are equal, then I will throw an error from here, throw new error, right? And then I can throw an error that, okay, you cannot, right? You cannot send connection request to yourself, right? This is lame, right? But then I can send this, right? I have thrown this error, and never forget to call next over here, because this is kind of like a middleware, right? You have to call this function next over here. This is really very important. Otherwise, the code will not move ahead and things will not be saved. Okay, always call next over here. If you will go over here, you will also find next, which is here, right? And over here you get next from here, right? So you get next as a parameter over here, right? Cool. So go read the documentation, and you will understand everything. You can call next over here, right? If you wish to, right? So you call the next over here, not if you wish to, you have to basically call next over here, right? And this happens before saving. Every time before you save, this will be called, and this will check if the user is same as the current user, right? Now, let me also tell you and give you a disclaimer that this is not mandatory to write and check this over here. You can check the same thing in your API level also. You can just check it over here also. You can just check this. You can write this if condition over here also. I am just showing this to you just to demonstrate, right? Just to teach you. Otherwise, I will never get a chance to teach you this, right? And let me tell you, this is a good way to write code also. See, keeping a validation of from user ID should not be equal to user ID is kind of like a job of schema, right? Our schema should protect it. So keeping such validations over here also makes sense, right? Keeping such validations over here makes sense. This is completely making sense. That is why I am writing it over here, right? So as I told you, all the developers have their own ways of writing code. I am just teaching you like this. You can write on your own whatsoever you want to, but at the end of the day, we are software engineers and we have to be very careful of what we are writing. Okay, we should not be allowing ourselves to, now Akshay Saini cannot send the connection request to Akshay Saini. If I will hit send, let me finger cross and let's see if it works. Cool. Cannot send connection request to yourself, right? This is how you can handle this error. Right, and this is a good way of handling things up. Cool. So we have protected our API securely now. This is the send request API and ignore request API. Everything is working perfectly fine. Cool. Now I have sent a request already. If I go to my DB, I have sent the request to Elon Musk. Let me also send request to one more user. Let us just say users, right? Let me just go and send request to Mark also, right? Let's say I am sending connection request to Mark Zuckerberg also, right? Send it, right? So now I am sending the connection request to Mark Zuckerberg. If I will go in my connection request, if I will refresh it, I will find 2 connection requests already there. Akshay has sent a connection request to Elon, and Akshay has sent a connection request to Mark Zuckerberg also, right? So this is how you can add the connection request, send the connection request, and let me also ignore someone, right? So let us suppose this is Virat Kohli, okay? Let me just ignore it. Suppose if I left side Virat Kohli. Sorry, Virat Kohli, I am your big fan, right? But I have to ignore it to test the feature, okay? So let us just ignore the profile of Virat Kohli, right? So if I am ignored, right? And Virat Kohli, if I send it, it says connection request sent successfully. I should rather give a different message over here if I am ignoring the profile. Okay. Can I give a better message over here? Where is it? If I am ignoring somebody's profile, so I should give a better message. Okay. So message over here, connection request sent successfully. I can say that, okay, okay, let us give it a very dynamic message. Okay. Let us make this message much more fun. Okay, so I can make it dynamic also. Okay, so I will just write status, right? So I will write something like this, okay? Akshay ignored Elon, or Akshay is interested in, right? Something like that, right? Akshay, where will I get the Akshay from? Akshay is my from user, or I will get it from request.user. Who is the request.user? Request.user, okay? There is a to user and a request.user, right? So request is the logged in user. So basically logged in user, request.user, and I will have the first name also, right? Because I have the data for it. And then I can write status first name. I can say that, okay, Akshay is, is interested, right? Is interested in, right? And then I can write to user. I found to user, right? This is the to user. I got it. To user dot first name. Okay. So to user dot first name, right? This should work. Cool. Now, if you don't understand this, then go back and read my code, right? It will make sense to you. But I am trying to make this dynamic, this request dynamic, right? Let me just remove the connection request and let us just send connection request once again. So I have ignored Virat Kohli. Let me just delete this. Let us maybe delete all the connection requests, okay? And let me send connection request once again to everyone, right? Why not? So let us go back to users. I am trying to send connection request to Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, I say interested, okay? Interested. So if I send it, it says Akshay is interested in Elon, okay? Now the message is cool, isn't it? Cool, a better message. So this is what I was saying. Let me just add a space, okay? Right? Now, let me go back to Mark Zuckerberg and I can say that, okay, let us say ignored, right? Now I am ignoring Mark Zuckerberg. No offense, but ignored. Ignored, right? If I send it, Akshay is ignored in Mark. Okay. Bad, right? My message is bad. Don't worry, but you fix it yourself. But what I am trying to say is we can also add a dynamic message over here. But now if I go back to my connection request DB, right, it will just tell me that, okay, one is interested, one is ignored, and we can do a lot of things over here, right? Cancel. Cool. This was the send request API. I think I have taken a lot of time to build this API because it was really important, right? I have also told you that, okay, I have also shown you how you can write this pre method, right? Before saving, always this method will be called. I want to teach you one last concept before I end this video, right? I will now tell you how to put an index in your database. Very important concept. Now, see, I am sending a lot of connection requests, right? I can send the connection request to one more person. Okay, let me just send connection request to maybe Virat Kohli. Okay, I have sent, and this time let me mark Virat Kohli as interested. Okay, and send. Cool. So Akshay is interested in Virat. Cool. So now think about a case. I have connection request. I have sent 3 connection requests. Now, just imagine whatever I am saying. There are 1000 people using your app, and these 1000 people are sending connection requests. Suppose every person is sending 1000 into 100, right? 100 connection requests. So what will happen is our connection request table or this collection will have how many records? It will have 1 lakh records. It will have 100,000 records. So as my collection will grow, my queries will become expensive. This query will become expensive. And when I say query will become expensive, that means whenever I will do a find on something, right? If I am doing connection request.find one, so these queries will become very slow. Because at the end of the day, database has to deal with so much data. Think about 1 million records into your database, right? 1 million connection requests. Somebody is sending to someone, somebody is sending to someone, somebody is accepting, somebody is modifying the request. So when you scale the database, it becomes very tough for DB to handle all these things. For that, you need indexes in your database, right? For that, you need indexes in your database, and you can index your database onto certain fields. Okay, so when I index my DB, so my API becomes faster. If I go on my user ID, right? If I go on my user table, right? I did not put any index over here, right? I should have ideally put index over here also. So let me tell you what is the role of index first of all, okay? Think about, let me tell you, okay, let me give you a real world example. Think about, you want to suppose find out, okay, so let me take an example. Suppose if you have 1 million records, in your 1 million users, suppose there are 100 people with the name Virat, right? Virat Kohli, Virat Saini, Virat anything, right? Virat Agarwal, Virat Tyagi, Virat something, right? There are many people with Virat. And you want to find any user with a username, right? Suppose if you want to do a search query. When I say search query, that means I am doing user.find, right? Whenever I am finding something, if I do by first name and there are millions of records, my DB will take a lot of time to return me the request. If there are 1 million entries, my DB can take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and your API will just wait, right? You remember, you might have seen a lot of applications where your API takes a lot of time. That is because the DB will take time to find out all the Virat Kohli or all the Virats from your, from the whole database, right? It becomes very tough for doing the search operation because DB will have to actually go to each entry and find out, oh, is he a Virat? Is he a Virat? Is he a Virat? Is he a Virat? So one by one, the DB will find out, right? So how will you find out? One by one, one by one, one by one. It will go to each user and find out who all are Virat and will give you the data back. But if you will keep an index in your database, if you will create an index in your database on the first name, then your query, the DB will optimize itself like that. Your query will become very, very fast. So suppose if I am creating first name as an index, right? First name as an index. So what will happen whenever I will query something, then the first name, with the first name, if I am doing something like this, okay, if I make this first name, if I am querying on first name and I have made the first name as index, right? So if I will do user.find1, right? Or if I do user.find, and if I will do something like this, right? I am just writing a dummy code, user.find, and over here I would say first name is Akshay, right? If I am making this DB query, so if I have put the index on first name, if the first name index is there, then this query will be very fast. If index is not there, then the query will be very, very slow. As the DB will grow, these queries become very, very expensive and very, very slow, right? They can even become so expensive that they can hang your database. Your database will be hanged and it will be a very big trouble for you, my dear friends. Okay. So whenever you are doing some search operation, be very mindful of what index you are keeping. For now, I don't need to keep an index on first name because we are not searching anybody from first name, right? What we are doing is we want to keep an index on email ID because a lot of times we want to find user by email ID, isn't it? A lot of times we find user by email ID. Why? Every time on login we find user by email ID, isn't it? Remember, right? Remember, let me show you the auth API in the login API. You got the email ID. Did you see this? You did this, right? Suppose if I don't have an index on my email ID, then your login API will become very slow because the database will have to go one by one and check out where is this email ID? Got it? So email ID should be indexed over here. Email ID should be indexed over here. But let me tell you a good feature about MongoDB. If you are making a field as unique, if you are saying that, okay, email ID is unique, MongoDB automatically creates an index for that, right? MongoDB automatically creates an index for unique equal to true, right? You go to the documentation and read it out. If you will go over here in schema and you will see the indexes. Where is indexes? Is there an index over here? Right? Let me just show it to you. Yup, indexes, right? Over here, if you will go, you will find it somewhere written, right? Can I see it? Can I see it? No, I can't see it over here. Let me go to schema types. Maybe I will find it over here. Is there an index over here? Yes. See this. You can also define MongoDB indexes using schema type options, right? So if you do index equal to true, it will create an index like this. If you do unique true, it will create an index automatically for you, right? So if I am doing unique equal to true, I don't need to worry about efficiency of the API if I am finding an email ID in my database. Okay, so this unique equal to true means I am good with it, right? This is my index query, right? You don't have to worry about it. But if you want to do in first name, so basically you have to either set it unique, right? Either set it unique equal to true, or you can either write index, right? Index equal to true over here, right? This is also you can write. Cool. If you write index equal to true, that means this will be indexed, right? This will be indexed. Over here, you write index equal to true. This means this is index. Okay. You can also talk about, you can also see, this is how you create a unique index. Unique index are much faster. So, read about these things, right? I can just keep on telling. There is infinite knowledge about index, infinite knowledge about database, but I am trying to give you as much knowledge as I can in these lectures, right? Otherwise, I can make a maybe Namaste database or something, right? Namaste Mongo or Namaste Mongoose. I'm not sure how many of you would be interested into that course, but over there I can talk more about these small things, right? If you see over here, each of these things in the left hand side needs a separate episode in itself. 1 hour, 2 hour lecture for each of it, right? There is so much inside database and mongoose. But I'm just quickly telling you, there is something known as sparse index, there is something known as unique index, and there is something known as normal index, right? So unique index can only be there where the value can be unique. You cannot keep a unique field over here, right? If you will keep unique over here, this will be a bigger problem, because then there will be no two users with the same first name can exist. I can't put this. So I can just put a random normal index over here. The query will be much faster if you will put index equal to true. Okay, this is how you do it. This is the index thing which I wanted to talk about. Now, in my connection request also, we are trying to find, whenever we are doing connection request.find, are we doing it? See, I was doing it, right? Over here, I am finding the connection request. So suppose if I have millions of connection requests in my database, then this query will become very hard. This query will be very tough for us. Now, because we are querying from see, whenever you query together, I am querying together. So that, okay, from user ID this to user ID this. So I need to index them both. So over here, the index that we need to create is known as a compound interest, compound index, right? So basically, there is something known as compound index. Compound index. Okay, compound indexes in MongoDB, right? You can just create compound index. Okay, and let me just tell you compound index mongoose, right? Just search for compound index mongoose. And in Mongoose indexes, I can just, okay, this is not Mongoose official website, is it? Where is Mongoose official website? cool. Let me just go over here and let me find out compound index. Is it there? Is it there? See, I'm not able to find it over here. But see, compound index is not something, it's not a word, it's a thing, right? Let me just tell you how you create compound index. First of all, just let me just show it to you. Okay. So how do you create it? Again, over here you go in the schema. Inside the schema, you do connection request schema dot index, right? You create it like this, dot index. And then over here, suppose if you want to create an index on from user ID. So you do like this, right? From user ID. And then you can write 1 over here. So this 1 means ascending order and -1 means descending order. So you don't have to worry much about it. Just write it as ascending order 1, right? Remember this. Read more about it. There can be multiple things over here, right? 1, -1, and there are more things that are there, right? Those are complex things I'm not covering right now. But just think about it. If I can create an index like this, right? Connection request schema dot index from user ID 1, right? The other way is, so now if I will do a query, right? Let me just comment it down. If I will ever do connection request dot find, and I will do something like this, okay? From user ID, and over here I pass some ID, right? So some ID, okay? So now all these queries will be very, very fast. All these queries will be very, very fast, right? If I put this. But suppose if I am making a query something like this from user ID, and I also have a to user ID along with it, and there is a random to user ID, right? So now just keeping the index on from user ID will not work. It will not make the query fast. You have to keep a compound index, and that compound index means something like this. It is very easy, right? See, creating an index is very easy. And all the job of optimizing things up, MongoDB will take care of that. MongoDB will take care of all the optimization and making the queries fast, and everything will be done by MongoDB. You just have to set the index right. As a software engineer, you should know where to keep the index, when to keep an index on a single field, when to keep an index on multiple field, or a compound index. So when I say compound index, that means whenever you will query with both these parameters, from user ID also to user ID combined, these queries will become very fast. Okay, and we are doing this already, right? So I am trying to find the existing connection request, and every time somebody sends a connection request, I am making this query. So if I am putting a compound index on both the items, that makes that this query will be very, very fast, even when I have millions of record in my database. Even if there are millions of document in this, in this collection, still my queries will be very fast. This is the important role of indexes in database, right? Read more about it. I would say go read about MongoDB indexes. What are different type of indexes, right? Just search for index over here, right? Just search for index over here and read it, right? Schema index, is it? This is index. Let me just show it to you. Yes, this is the place, right? See this. You can even have 1, -1, 2D sphere, geo haystack, hashed, and a text index, right? These are different type of things you can keep. See, 1 means ascending, -1 means descending, right? And there are different types. This is a 2D index. There is a 2D sphere. Read more about all of these things. See, let me tell you, my dear friends, you will rarely use all of these, right? Rarely you will get a chance to use all of these. We will not, in general cases, we don't need this, right? You generally make a index 1 or -1. That's all you do. Sometimes you make a compound index, right? If you want to, right? And let me tell you, a good use case of a compound index is also in user, right? Suppose if I am creating the user, right? And I have a use case where I want to find the user by first name plus last name, right? Suppose if I am finding the user with first name and last name. Right now I don't have this kind of a requirement, but what if in my code, I want to find the user by first name, last name, and I have to make a query something like this, right? So let me just tell you, okay? So if there is a use case, I have to find the user. This is the very common query, okay? So if I find the user like this, right? Suppose if I have to find the user by first name and last name is Seni, right? If I have to find the user like this, and there are millions of entry in my user table. So what will I do? It will make sense for me to create a index, right? schema, right? Dot index. I will create an index, and I will create an index not just on one field. I will create an index on a compound. So basically, I will create a compound index on both the fields, right? I will do something like this: first name, and I will keep it ascending, and last name, will keep it ascending. So basically, when you write this 1 or -1, right? So this basically, it will optimize such queries, right? And 1 it will change the order how MongoDB stores the database, right? Stores the entries in the database. It is internal concept. You don't have to worry much about it, right? But this is how you set the index, and this is known as the compound index. Read more about it. If you'll Google about compound interest, you will find a lot of things. Compound interest in MongoDB. The official website of MongoDB has a very good article, right? Just read this, right? Compound indexes. This is for the reference. I will add this in your homework, right? Maybe so that you can go through this. Okay, so I will add the homework here. Read this article about compound indexes, right? This is the article. Cool. And now let me go back, save it. Why this is failing? Did I write something wrong? User is not defined. Where is the user not defined? User.js, okay, I should not write this line. So what I am saying is, when you put a compound interest like this on first name and last name, these type of queries become very fast, okay? So this is how you put it. And you can index on a lot of fields also, right? So you can create index on, suppose if you want to create index on maybe first name, right? So you can just do like this, right? You create an index on first name. Suppose if you want to create index on your skills, right? So you can create it on your skills. You can create it index on gender. You can create maybe if you have a use case, then you can add an index on age also, right? You can do and create index on something like this. And a good way, you can just add it like this. Suppose if I also wanted an index on gender, right? So I can just add it like this, right? It will just make your job very fast, right? Suppose if you do user.find gender male, it will give you fast, right? So this is what it is. But now a lot of students also have one question, right? That then we should, if it will make it fast, then what we will do? Let us just create indexes, let us just create index on every field, right? It will make sense. MongoDB will optimize it. But let me tell you, creating index unnecessarily also comes with a cost. Now, this is your homework to find out why. Why should we not create a lot of indexes into the DB? Because see, when you create an index, you don't have to do heavy job, but DB, it takes very tough time for DB to handle those indexes. Okay, DB has to store the data in such a way that your queries become faster. DB has to store, ultimately inside database also there is a data structure, there is some algorithms running in, there is a query pattern which is written in, right? There is a database is built using trees, right? Database generally are built using trees, right? So there are data structure algorithms and everything running behind the scenes. So you know what? So what I am trying to say is, when you create a lot of indexes, then it becomes tough for DB to handle those indexes also, okay? So don't create like random indexes when you don't need it. Always be very specific about what indexes that you create. And generally, when you are starting slow, when you are starting new, there is no need of creating an index, right? If suppose your application is having 100 users or even 1,000 users, you really don't need to create index, right? But you really don't need to create any index on your user table, right? Just having email ID unique will get your job done. But suppose if there is a table, or there is a collection connection request. This connection request collection can grow exponential, because see, if you have 1,000 users, then you can have 1 lakh request, right? So over here it makes sense to add this compound index, right? So as an engineer, there is no rule as such to know that, okay, when should you create an index. It is very subjective, and it is upon your brevity, or it is upon your intelligence, that how smartly you will create indexes. But it is very, very important thing. That is why I am stressing a lot of time on this, because I want you to be very good at it, and you should read more about it. The more you will read, the better you will become. So the homework highlight will be read about indexes, right? Read more about indexes in MongoDB, right? Because we are using MongoDB. It's very different. See, indexing in SQL is very different. Indexing in MongoDB is very different. See, ultimately the job of indexes is to make your query faster, right? Get the query faster. But the way it is implemented, the way things work behind the scenes are very different in SQL, very different in MongoDB. Okay? Read more about indexes. Again, a question is, why do we need an index? You should know the answer to this, right? In your interview, these questions can be asked, right? Or what is the advantages and disadvantages of creating index? Creating index. Okay. So basically you should know when you should not create index, when you should create index. You should know the advantages and disadvantages, and also figure out the disadvantages of creating a lot of indexes, right? So basically one more thing, that okay, what if I create a lot of index? What are the disadvantages? Okay, that will come in this only. Okay, so please do all of it. Now, okay, so this is your homework. Another homework is, okay, today I did not even take a pause between the video because I was just busy explaining a lot of things. But let me just give you the whole homework right away. Connection request, create a connection request schema. This is what we did. Create connection request schema, add proper validation. Then once you have connection request schema, then also we saw what else did we do today, right? Connection request schema. Then I wrote the query for send connection request API, right? This is what API you have to design, right? You have to do proper validation of data. Think about all corner cases. This is what we do, right? Did right today. Think about corner cases, all corner cases, right? And handle them, right? And then one thing that we also do was we saw about the $or query. So there is dollar or query and dollar and query also. Just read more about it. Query in Mongoose, right? So basically, see, I was doing right dollar or query today. I did. You have to read more about such queries, right? So where is it? Where is it in my request over here? So I have done this dollar or query, right? So you have to read more about it today. You know, you will need a lot of effort to find out this thing, right? So you should know what is this or query, right? This is basically I am writing or between two condition. Similarly, I can also write dollar and if we get a use case, I will write and show it to you definitely as we go ahead and make more things, right? There is also, you know, suppose if you have to write a query for not equal to, suppose, see, if I ask you that, okay, find a user where the email ID is akshay@gmail.com. So you can find it, you know how to write it. But what if I say find all the users who don't have a email ID of akshay@gmail.com, right? So you will have to write inverse queries also, right? So read more about it. So, okay. there is something known as, see, dollar or mongoose, right? Just write it, right? So just go over here in the queries, right? Yes. So this is the queries. Over here, you can just see what you can write. Will it be over here? But instead of mongoose, you should go and try to read it up in MongoDB, right? This is here it is. Yes, cool. This is here it is, right? Just try to find this thing, right? Logical query. So there are logical queries. So you can write $and, $not, $nor, $or, right? You can find out all these queries, right? See, here you will find comparison queries, equal to, greater than equal to, in, LT, less than equal to, not equal to, not in. Find out all these things, right? Read more about it. You have to read more about these queries. Let me also give this as a homework over here. Read more about these logical queries. It is very easy. When you will read it, it will be very clear to you. And when we will make more features into our application, when we will use all of it, so you will understand them very quickly. But I want you to do this homework, right? So what I did a proper validation of data, think about all corner cases, then try to find out the difference between these queries. And then one more thing what I do, schema.pre function, right? I created schema.pre function also. You have learned a lot of new things, right, today, right? Free function. We have learnt a lot of cool things in this episode, isn't it? See, we are now doing some advanced concepts of Node.js and Express, right? Now we are writing advanced code. So please open your mind and keep following it, keep practicing it. That is when you will become a great developer, right? My job is to teach you. That is all I can do. This is your homework for today, right? We did a lot of things today, right? And if I ask you, right, if I tell you, right, we saw a lot of cool things, indexes. We saw a lot about indexes. We saw a lot about queries, right? I would name this as queries and indexing, right? Queries and indexes in database, in DB, right? And we did a lot of other things. We created schema, we created API, and we created and handled corner cases. I have told you, right? So always think about the lesson in this episode that you should take from here is, right? The lesson you should take is always think about corner cases, right? Corner cases, and always think that if you leave a corner case, an attacker can attack that corner case and can mess up your database, okay? Always think about corner cases, right? Corner cases, because any attacker will not leave your APIs. If anybody get your API, they can just pass anything random to it, right? In this whole episode, I just focused upon one API, right? And I went a little slow. I explained you each and every line which I write. I explained you the thought process behind it because I really wanted to, and this is very, very important. Now, in the next episode, my dear friends, I will focus more on more APIs, right? We will do a lot more APIs, right? And it will be very fun to learn, right? All these things. We will build a lot more APIs. This was about sending the connection request. Now we will create an API to also accept the connection request, right? So it will be very fun to make. I will do that in the next episode. We will learn a lot more cool things. I will also tell you that, okay, how can you create references, right? You can even link two connections together. We will link to connection, right? How can you create references in your database? How do you populate those references? I will talk about a lot of complex things inside Mongoose and Express. So don't worry. Let's get onto the advanced stuff. We are liking it up, and we are also building our cool Dev Tinder application. We have seen how do you send connection request, accept connection request, and a lot of amazing cool things. Okay. I'm very, very excited to teach you. Hope you are learning a lot. Hope you are excited. Hope you are learning a lot, right? You have to put in a lot of efforts in your learning. That is when you will be able to understand everything properly. That is my request from you all. Okay, that's all in this video, my dear friends. If you like the video, my throat is aching, trust me. I have been speaking continuously since a long time. But thank you so much, my dear friends, for patiently waiting and listening to me for long hours. These episodes are getting very, very long. I think how much time? It has been almost 2 hours since I am recording this episode, right? And I know it is tough for you also to watch and sit and watch for 2 hours, me, right? And learn all these things. These things are complicated, and also do your homework. Take your time and finish all these things up. And thank you so much for watching all these things. If you like my efforts, then please give me a shout out on social media. This is my request. Also tag me when you are writing something about it. I would love to see it, right? And if you are really enjoying the course, please write a little about the feedback, what you are liking it, what you are not liking it, right? And share it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram. Tag me up. I would love to read it, right? Also, I would like to say that please, please, please code along with me. Push your code to GitHub. Keep making down notes, right? And put some effort to learn more than what you know, right? I want you all to be very curious to learn about new things, about what happens in Mongoose, Mongo in a deeper level. I am not diving deep into Mongoose because Mongoose is a very big library, but I want you all to be very curious and learn a lot, not just what I am teaching you, but also what I am not teaching you in Express and Mongoose, right? Because they are very, very big. So now that was all in this video. Thank you so much once again. Please give me a shout out. I'm requesting you once again. It means a lot to me. It will help me reach more and more students. Thank you so much for watching this video once again. I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye-bye, my dear friends.